Hello, everyone. You are here at the Only Way Out interview. And this is all about speaking openly and talking with whoever it is that you feel comfortable talking with, because that is the whole message behind my book. My name is Katie Cooperman. I am the author of the book, The Only Way Out, which is a young adult novel about bullying and mental health. And most importantly, comes with a strong message about talking openly and speaking up. And I have here with me today Reese, who is a student in the Early Childhood Studies program at X University in Toronto and is also a dance teacher. And I am so grateful to have her here. We are going to make this a very open and candid conversation. She has something to share about a past experience of hers. And I think it's so important for people to just talk openly and speak up about this kind of stuff. And that's what we're trying to do here today. So, Reese, how are you today?
Good. How are you? I'm excited.
Great. Thank you so much for being here once again. And we're going to dive right in, but we want to know what happened and what we're talking about here today. So my first question, just to get us started, is, this experience that you had that you're going to share with us. How old were you when this happened?
So I guess it started when I was in grade 9, like right when I went into high school.
Okay.
And I guess it really kind of continued close until the end. So grade 12, kind of my whole high school experience, I guess you could say.
So that was my next question. Was it a single incident or something that was ongoing? Mm-hmm. So tell us what happened. I guess tell us how it started.
Mm-hmm. So when I was in elementary school and when I was in grade 8, I had a really good elementary school experience. I had a lot of close friends and I had a lot of nice people around me for the most part. And most of those people ended up going to the same high school as me. And so when I went into high school, it was very different than when I was in elementary school. I feel like, and I'm sure, as we all know, like it's very cliquey, very group based. Everyone kind of is associated with a group of people. And that's not really what I was used to in elementary school. I was very someone who kind of like flowed between people, like friends with everyone. And so when I was in high school, I kind of got grouped into a group of 4 because my best friend at the time was friends with 3 other people. So I kind of got grouped into that as well because I was hanging out with her. So there were 4 girls and me, so a group of 5. So kind of like the way it is, because there were 5 of us, there were 2 and 2 and then 1, and I happened to be that one that was left out on the side. So what happened was a lot of the time like I said, I was left out to the side. I wasn't really seen as part of the group because I didn't have that other person.
Right.
So what was happening, and I guess it was because of, the way I kind of was in elementary school. I was very, nice, and I kind of wasn't really standing my ground. I was really, worried about, is this person going to be mad at me? What is this person going to think about me? So I really didn't stand up for myself. But what started to happen was that those girls in the group, they really started putting me down, and they really started kind of, it started to become a bullying cycle because, if we were all in a group together, I would kind of be the scapegoat that they were making fun of. And a lot of times, like online, when we would be hanging out and they would be, posting videos online, they would refer to me as the duff of the group, which stands for dumb, ugly, fat friend.
Oh,
and it was, yeah. So, and, like a lot of times when people nowadays, like when people are being bullied, the other person's like, oh, I'm just joking around. Like, I'm just kidding. And I feel like because that's happened so much now, people don't know what bullying is because everything's seen as a joke, or, oh, I'm just kidding, like lighten up, like, because that's happening now with, especially with young people and, all these like memes and stuff online, like no one really knows what bullying is. Like it's not as kind of like clear cut as we've like you and I have learned about it in school and from our parents and stuff. So it was really hard like for me to kind of realize I was being bullied. And it honestly wasn't until like first year university that I was like, oh wow, like this is actually like bullying. Like, they
Wow.
would, yeah, they would they would just talk down to me. Like it wasn't even like I was a person, I'd always be so scared to like hang out with them, but I couldn't hang out with anyone else because I was in this group and I wasn't strong enough to go out and start hanging out with other people. And yeah, there was a lot of drama, there was a lot of just negativity, and it was always kind of on me. Like I would say something and they would say like, oh, like you're so stupid, or like why are you saying that, or like why do you look this way, like why are you wearing this. That was a big one, is like um oh, like why are you wearing this and stuff, because I don't know, like I just wanted to, like, because you know what I mean, like it was,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that really happened for like the majority of my high school experience. I was constantly with these four girls who would always be putting me down, and I would go to the end of the earth for them, even though like at the end of the day they were bullying me. So it was almost like having a friend that's a bully. Like it wasn't necessarily someone completely random. Like these were people that I had become friends with and then had started this bullying cycle. So it wasn't until like the end of grade 12 where I started to get the confidence to actually kind of branch out and like and speak up and find like new friends. So
And did
it's,
you do that?
yeah, I like by the end of it I had like, again, I was right where I was in grade 8. I was friends with everyone, and I really realized like, oh, like I could have done this from the start. It's not that,
Wow.
yeah. So I think the biggest thing that, made me connect with your book was that my best friend at the time in grade 9, who kind of um, brought me into that group, when all of this was going on, she kind of stood there and didn't say anything. And, she would sometimes join in as well. Like she would laugh, like sometimes she would repost those videos of me and all that stuff. So that's when I started to realize like, okay, this is bullying, because she was kind of standing there and not doing anything. And I started to realize like, oh, like she's very much worried that she could be next. And it
Right.
was kind of that mentality. And like they would never say anything about her, it was always me. But I was just thinking like, if they started saying stuff about her, like I would not stand there and just kind of like go along with it and laugh with it, whatever. And
Yeah.
so that's when I started to realize like she she doesn't really get it, like she doesn't really understand how this is making me feel. So it was hard. Like through grade 9, grade 10, and grade 11, I felt very, very alone. Got into a like a really dark place, just mentally, and I was just not making the right decisions to help myself. I was doing really anything I can to like just not think about it. Like the amount of times I would try to tell my parents I was sick and like didn't want to go to school, because I didn't want to deal
Wow.
with these people. And at the end, they're like, "Oh, well, like I thought they were your friends. Like you don't want to go and see your friends." So it was interesting because it was like I felt like it wasn't a very like um typical bullying experience where it's someone you're not friends with. So, and
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of the time that's what's happening today. Like that's a lot of the time what I'm hearing from other people is like, oh, like this girl in my friend group now, or this boy in my friend group now, they're starting to bully me, and the rest of the friend group is just standing there and just, yeah. So
Wow.
I feel like a lot of the time like that's what's happening today. And because they're like, oh, this is your friend group, this is your friend, you forget that it's bullying because they're supposed to be your friends. And that's where the, oh, I'm just kidding, like we can joke around with each other, we're just friends. Every little joke has like a seed of truth in it, or has like, it's going to
I
make,
always say that. Yeah.
yeah, it's going to make you doubt yourself. So I feel like that's what's going on today. like with a lot of people, a lot of young people I talk to, and it can have the same, repercussions, the same effect. You still see that bystander effect with the rest of the friend group standing and like, or not doing anything. And you still see that like fear that this person's going to be next.
Right.
So yeah, it's hard for sure. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I first want to say I'm so, so sorry that you went through that. Nobody deserves that. And, all these latest conversations these days about equity and equality between people, what gives someone the right to put anybody else down in any way, shape, or form. So I first wanted to say that. Secondly, I find it very interesting that it was within your friend group. I think that's a really interesting point that I hadn't really considered, to be honest, up until now, and I think that's the kind of stuff that research doesn't show. All the research that I've done, they're not talking about the fact that it could actually be a quote unquote friend who is doing this to you and passing it off as a joke, or hey, don't take things so seriously, lighten up, and so forth. That's very interesting. And it's actually even more disturbing, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's even worse. When this was going on, did you feel, I know you said you tried to tell your parents a couple of times, and you felt alone. So did you manage to tell anybody, or was it just that sort of pivotal moment in grade 12 when you realized I am going to try to go get another group, or I'm going to try to branch out of this on my own?
I think so. At the beginning, I really kept it to myself. I didn't want to say anything because I also didn't want to lose the quote unquote friends I did have, because I really had no one else. That was really the difficult part. Like, oh, if I lose these people, I really won't have anyone.
Yeah.
So, it was really, I think it was, I want to say like in grade 10. So like a year had gone by where I was not in a good headspace. I was harming myself. And it was one day my mom came in and found me like that. And she asked me what was wrong. And, I told her that this was going on inside my friend group. And just like you said, it's interesting. It makes it much more disturbing that it's part of the friend group. I think she really thought it was someone outside that I wasn't, close with, wasn't associated with. But when she kind of found out that like, oh, these people had been over to the house, these people were who I was texting every day, FaceTiming, she was like, oh my gosh, like this is scary. So I started going to therapy. And
That's great.
yeah, it was honestly like a life-changing experience. And I really just think that the mechanisms that my therapist gave me about, that self-talk that was happening to myself because of what I was surrounding myself with was really, really negatively impacting me.
Yes.
And that if I didn't remove myself or fix my environment in order to fix my self-talk, like I was not doing anything to help myself. And it took, obviously it didn't take like a one session fix, but it took a while for me to build up the strength and the courage to kind of like branch away. And it was something that happened slowly, but by the end of like grade 12 to first year university, like I wasn't speaking to them. Like I still, like I haven't talked to them in quite a while.
That was going to be one of my questions too.
Yeah, I was able to do it, but it took a while. And I think, through that process, I started to realize like, oh, like this is something I should have done a lot sooner. But you kind of realize like you're really alone in this situation. Maybe I could have done it sooner if, my best friend who I was friends with at the time wasn't also a bystander as well.
Yes.
Like you know what I mean? So maybe it would have been easier if I had had the support, but you just feel so alone at the time that if there's not someone who, is sticking up for you, it's hard to make that change. And I think back, like if my mom didn't walk in on me, would I have told her? Like, I really don't know. Like,
Wow.
I don't know, or it might've been a while later, but like at the time, I don't know if I was ready. So I was kind of in a way happy that, she did walk in, because I didn't have the strength to tell her. And there was also no support in that friend circle for me to go through as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And probably by that walk-in, it precipitated the moment where you probably didn't have anything else to say but the truth, right?
Yeah.
Because it made that come forward.
Yeah.
So that's a
Exactly.
very good event. Did you continue to see your therapist from grade 10 to grade 12?
Yeah. I still see her now. So I've seen her
That's
since
fantastic.
grade 10. Yeah, I really think it makes a huge difference. And um I think especially like with therapy as well, like after you know, reach a point where you're like, okay, like, I'm using the mechanism she gave me, I feel good. I feel like it's very much still important to go even if you're feeling okay. And I think
Yes,
that's a huge thing that happens, especially now, like once you start feeling okay, or once you're like, okay, this problem's over, you neglect it until the next one comes and then you can't handle it anymore.
right.
So that's why I kept seeing her throughout, because I knew that this was going to happen. I knew there were going to be setbacks. And, even when I was trying to branch away from that group, um, there were still times when they would reach out to me when I would see them in school, and or I would see them at parties and stuff. Even in grade 11 and 12, they started to um, befriend my boyfriend at the time, which was really hard because then I had to tell
Wow.
him what had gone on. And luckily he was kind of like, oh, that's messed up, and he, cut off the relationship. But it's interesting because
Good.
they knew what they were doing by befriending.
Yes,
They knew I was starting to push away, and if they were, befriending him, then that would come back. So
right.
it's yeah, it definitely took a while. And like, those kind of setbacks happen, and I'm grateful that I was in therapy to work through that, because if it was just, me going right after the time that I harmed myself for like a month, like it would have happened again and again. So
Right.
just
Right.
yeah.
Do you have any idea why they did this, or what were they possibly going through something in their own lives or personally, that either at home or personally, I should say, that might have driven those feelings or created those insecurities, that where they felt the need to put you down like that?
Yeah, like that's something I still think about to this day. I'm trying to think back to what was going on in their life then. Um, I know one of them was her parents were going through a divorce, and I know that that can definitely create some tension and some, hard feelings. But the other three, I genuinely think they were very insecure people, and I think in order to lift themselves up they had to put other people down. They didn't want to be, you know um the ugliest one there. They wanted to make someone feel worse. They didn't want to be the stupidest one there. They wanted to make someone else feel worse. So I genuinely, besides that one person in the friend group, I don't know if there was anything else going on, maybe that they didn't share. And like definitely nothing had come up after the fact that I was aware of. So yeah, like that's something I still think about, because like you said, like at the beginning, like what, like how can someone do that to someone else? That's something I
Yeah.
thought of like all the time. Is there something going on? Because again, like I always try to give people the benefit of the doubt. But once I started realizing how much this was affecting me, I really was like, I just have to get out.
Yeah.
But there was really nothing that I was aware of that was going on personally. Now that I think about it, I think the three of them, the three who weren't going through, whose parents weren't going through a divorce, I think that they were just insecure people. I really
Yeah.
do. I think that was what's going on.
Yeah. Which is a
So
big one.
yeah.
Did you ever stand up to them, or were you just gradually pulling away, and that was sort of your way out and your solution to the problem?
Um, so I think at the beginning, I kind of had a plan to gradually pull away, but it was hard for me to do so because I was like, okay, if I pull away, where else will I go? Like, who else will hang out with me?
And
So
how did you start doing that?
what I started to do was, I started to see other people kind of. So what really happens is, for me, grade 9 and 10, there were really kind of solidified groups, And, you know, it makes sense because once you come in grade 9, like no one really knows each other.
Yeah.
So those groups kind of stay where they are for like grade 9 and grade 10. And then once people start to, you know, have classes with other people, do extracurriculars with other people, they start to branch out. So I started to see groups kind of merging together, and
Okay.
other people start making different groups. So I was like, okay, like, you know, this is something that I could do because, you know, even if it's just like, it wouldn't be the whole group merging together, you know, I could start to make another group of friends so, you know, that I would have somewhere to go. So, um, when I was in grade 11, that's kind of when that started to happen. I was part of extracurriculars and I was in different classes than my initial friend group. So I started to not see them as much. So it was easier to pull away, and it was easier to kind of find new people. And in grade 11 and 12 was also the time that a lot of people in the school started to realize the bullying that occurred with me and just how they weren't like a nice group.
Oh,
It
wow.
started, yeah, like they started to realize that, you know, um I was a lot of the times scapegoat in the group. And, you know, like when, you know, they were posting videos of me labeling it the duff, like people would see that and then people would, you know, they wouldn't say anything to them, but, you know, they kind of knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So it was until grade 11 or 12, like when I had my own group, a new group of friends, um, they actually started to find a new scapegoat, which was one of the girls' boyfriends, and they started to bully him. So
Wow.
it got to the point where, and my boyfriend was friends with that boy at the time. So it got to a point where, you know, we were in the hallway or something, and, you know, they were like pushing him around physically. And,
Wow.
you know, I kind of said to them, like, what are you doing? Like, you can't be doing that to people. Like, do you,
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, like in the moment, they kind of like laugh it off and they, you know, think it's funny, but, you know, I could tell that they kind of realized it, but they didn't stop. Like they still did it to the point where the boy had had enough and he just broken it off with the girl.
Wow.
And I think he ended up changing schools.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like
that's
I,
always the biggest leap that people could take, right? That's sort of the,
yeah. Yeah, exactly. I've heard a lot about that. And that's the thing is like, I thought about it. I'm like, oh, you know, I wouldn't it be great if I could change schools? But then it's, you know, I'm at even more of a risk because I'm going in new with no like friend group behind me.
yeah.
And so that's another reason why I was nervous, because I also didn't know anyone at you know, other schools. And like that's why I was really grateful for dance as well, because I had another outlet. But it just so happened that my closest friends at dance were a year younger or a year older. So if I did switch to their school, I wouldn't be in any
Right.
of the classes.
Right. And there's
So
something also I think to be said about, I mean, your story I find to be very inspiring because you found a way to pull yourself out of it and you came out the other side with a much better group of friends,
yeah.
people who appreciated you and valued you for who you are. And if you had simply switched schools, you'd be starting over. Maybe you would have found, you know, a better group of friends, but at the same time, you wouldn't have tackled your whole situation head on. You know, you ended up speaking up and telling your mom. That was, you know, step number one. That's most important. Step two, you know, your mom had that frame of thought in her mind thinking, you know, I'm going to get her a therapist. I think that's the most amazing part too. Step two. Step three, you learning so much from that therapeutic experience to then pull that into your life and actually change your situation for yourself. I think that shows real empowerment right there versus simply escaping a situation and starting fresh. Not to say that that's not sometimes a good answer too, if things were to get really bad, but I think there's great inspiration behind your story that you were able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Good
Yeah,
on you.
yeah, for sure. And I think it's so interesting because you know, I didn't know that that would happen for myself. Like I really was at a point where I'm like, I don't know how much longer I can be in this world, because I don't know if I can I don't know if I'll ever get the courage to change my situation. And until I change it, like, I'm just going to be absolutely miserable because,
Wow.
you know,
And
yeah,
this is the saddest part. And this is the
yeah,
cycle, as you mentioned from the beginning, right?
yeah,
This is why taking that first extremely hard, possibly the hardest step, is saying it out loud to someone
yeah,
else, or even the step before that, saying it to yourself in your own head, there's a problem here. I'm
yeah,
miserable. This is
mhm,
not the way I should be living my life. I don't deserve this.
yeah,
And then having the courage to tell just one person who can help.
yeah,
That's so
yeah,
important. But without that, there can be no
exactly,
change. There has to be the
yeah,
talking first.
yeah. And I think what you said was really important. You have to say it to yourself or admit it to yourself. That was definitely the hardest thing because, I didn't want to, admit this to myself. I kept, like replaying the narrative of like, oh, they're just my friends, they're joking. And I see a lot of that now with younger people. They're like, my sisters or my friends will say something that happened, and I'm like, they're literally bullying you, and they're like, oh no, it's my friends, it's just a joke. Like that statement, like,
Right.
oh, it's just a joke, like that's what makes
So
people like,
dangerous.
yeah, it's yeah.
That's very
Yeah.
interesting.
Hmm.
I want to do some more research on that too. I
Yeah.
think that's a very dangerous situation. It's almost like a brainwashing situation, because if you hear that enough times, you start to believe it. Oh,
Hmm.
they're my friends, they're just joking. But it starts to not be a joke when it's something that happens over and over and over and over again. Then it starts to be a pattern of treatment and unfair treatment.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, still a lot of the time, it's some like bullying is someone who's not associated in the person with like in their friend group. I think that's still happening a lot of the time, but I
Yeah.
feel like there's this new, it's still bullying. I don't want to say it's a different type, but there's this new kind of, I don't know the word, like strategy that, bullies are using by befriending someone first and gaining their trust before putting them down,
Wow.
because they want those people. And these sometimes are the bullies who don't have a support system, who don't have people behind them, so they really start to befriend people. And then, like you said, it's that brainwashing cycle. Once they've heard, oh, it's just a joke, they're less likely to realize like, oh, this is actually bullying, and at the end of the day they're still going to stay by your side.
Wow.
So that's, yeah,
Yeah, that seems like almost a whole other ball game and a whole other mental aspect. I think you touched on an important point there, what the bully person is experiencing, this lack of community, lack of support, finding the friend only to then feel the need to put them down, but they'll still always be there because it's just a joke.
yes.
Wow.
Hmm.
Does this, I mean, minus the fact that we're having this conversation right now, is this something that crosses your mind to this day, or is it something that you've managed to forget about for the most part and to move on completely?
I definitely don't think I've moved on from it completely. It really, really took some time, because what ended up happening. So when I went to X university downtown, um, one one of them was actually going to the same school and was in the same program.
Wow.
So she was trying to befriend me again because she didn't have anyone else. So,
Do you think
and
she was planning to bully you again too, or just she really needed a friend?
yeah, I wasn't sure. So I gave her the benefit of the doubt, and then we met up for whatever reason. I think it was to take the train together downtown because we were commuting, and it was like I was talking to the same person she was in grade 9. So nothing had really changed at all,
No
like
growth.
no growth. So
Wow.
that's when I knew. So yeah, because maybe people can change. I do think that people, like bullies, can become better people and even can become victims.
Yeah.
So I was definitely like, okay, I can give her a second chance. And I also thought, she's on her own. It's not like the other 3 people are coming with her.
True.
So that's why I was like, okay, maybe it's fine. But no, it was the same. And like this girl happened to also be kind of the ringleader of it all, I guess you could say.
Uh-huh.
And so that I still saw that in her again. So then what ended up happening was she switched programs. So she wasn't, I guess she didn't like the program, which I thought, okay, that's okay. But then the rest of the friend group who went away to school, I guess they weren't making friends because, I heard from other people that they had, started to treat people the same way as they was treating me. Those people didn't take crap from them. So they came back home and went to school in Toronto and made that whole group again from high school without me because they didn't have anyone else.
Wow.
And like till this day, I don't follow them anymore on social media, but I think someone might have reposted something they were doing and they were all together on a vacation. And it's been how long? Like years.
Wow.
So it's something that definitely still crosses my mind. Not as much anymore because I took them off social media. I think that was a huge thing. And that wasn't something
I was going to say that's a big step.
that was a big step. That was something that even after grade 12, I didn't do until maybe like the beginning of the pandemic.
Wow.
Like I didn't do that for a while because I don't know. So now that I did it, it doesn't cross my mind as much. But whenever someone brings up like high school and high school experiences, like, the talk right now is like how hard it must be in high school with COVID.
Yes.
Like that's just adding that whole. So when people talk about that, it's not that I necessarily get triggered, but I'm, thinking about what happened to me.
Yeah.
So, and because I'm also working with kids and with teens in the mental health like aspect,
Yeah.
it's something that always crosses my mind for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that, because of therapy, because, I had that courage I built up that courage within myself to kind of let go and find, a new group of people. I think my mental health has obviously gotten better from there. So I think that I've become better at, focusing on the now and, focusing on how I can really help people who are in that situation that I was, instead of kind of dwelling on it and thinking about and just letting it bother me. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I think that you have something great to offer, in your space and everything you've chosen to do in terms of school and eventually career. You have that backing that lots of people wouldn't have, that maybe go into that space. Maybe they haven't had that same experience. What you could offer someone would be, so invaluable for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Further to that, I mean, what would you say you would have done differently, if anything, back when that happened to you or started happening to you?
I think more than anything, like I wish that I was able to say something more. Like I think I really wish that, I had the courage sooner to say something. And, I'm thinking about the person I am now. If I was in that situation now with, the growth that I've done, if I, let's say befriended people who were just kind of like that, I know I could say something now.
Yeah.
But back then I don't know if I could say something. So that's the one thing that I wish I kind of worked more towards. And, because I wasn't confident in speaking up for myself, I think that that's why I took the distancing route, because it was easier. But I'm also glad that, after I did distance myself and saw them doing it again, I'm really proud of myself for, sticking up and, kind of telling them off. But if I could do something differently back then, it would definitely be to kind of, confront them and definitely leave sooner. Like if this was starting at the beginning of grade 9, and I don't think I distanced myself till grade 11.
Right.
So that's like 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a very, very long time, especially in the life of a teenager.
Oh my God, yeah. It's so long.
What's interesting is even though, you wish you could have stood up for yourself sooner, even spoken up or told somebody sooner, or even done things a little bit differently in terms of speaking up and then also making the move away from them, I think the impressive part about your story is the fact that you still got here. You know, this was the end goal and you still got there. And I think that's a really big inspiration to anybody who would listen to this.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. Like, it definitely, I'm proud of, where I am now, but it's definitely something that was really difficult. And sadly, like, I know, there's people going through this, and, like, your book states, if people even just tell one person, or even if that one person sticks up for them, like, that can make a huge, huge difference.
Huge.
Yeah.
Change a life, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one last question for you. If there's anything that comes to mind that you would want to tell young people of today, in relation to your story, or if there was just some kind of message that you would deliver to anybody sort of going through something similar or even something different.
I think that in terms of mental health and in terms of just life in general, everyone is going through their own specific battle that we don't necessarily know about. You
Yeah.
may know about the battles of some people, but in terms of people in general, you don't know. So, and this is something I've also learned in school, people's behavior indicates a need. So if someone's behaving in a way that's, rude, or they're bullying someone, it means, that they need something, that they need the support. And, if someone is, quiet and shy, or not shy, but just quiet and timid to open up, that also means they need something.
Yeah.
So, whatever people are feeling or behaving indicates a need. So I think what I would say to young people is, be kind to people around you. Everyone is going through their own battles. And if you're going through something, the best thing you can do for yourself is tell someone. Even, like, that's probably going to be the hardest step in your journey, is to tell someone. So, and I think that, when you think about it, you need to start treating yourself the way that you treat other people. And that's something that I definitely learned, being so nice to everyone, bending backwards over for people. I need to start treating myself that way too.
Yeah.
I need to start giving myself that support. I need to start telling, myself, hey, like, you need help, you need to talk to someone. So I would definitely say that, be kind to people. Everyone's going through their own struggle, and definitely treat yourself with that same kindness that you're giving to other people. And talk to someone, even if it's one person. That's going to make such a huge difference.
Yeah.
One person.
Yeah. I think that's huge. That last point that you made, it's not, we everyone always says, oh, be kind, but they're not always talking about, it has to start here, because if you're kind to yourself, if you love who you are, if you know who you are, if you're authentic about who you are, and you feel confident with all of that because you're giving yourself that kindness, then you won't feel the need to get into trouble over here, or to bully someone, or put anybody else down.
Yeah.
Or, it all starts from there too. And yeah, if you're going through something, I think that's, the most perfect message. You got to just grab that one little string of faith and bravery in order to speak up.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Reese. This was very eye-opening. I want to say that I'm really, really sorry for everything that you went through, truly, from the bottom of my heart. It breaks my heart to hear these stories.
Yeah.
At the same time, I think it's extremely brave and courageous of you to come forward and share this. And I know we both have the same vision for this. I hope, just even one person watches this and gets that shred of hope or that piece of bravery that they need to make a change, either in their life or someone else's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you so much for this. I think that, this interview and your book for sure are going to help people who are in that uncomfortable spot and don't know what to do. And, just putting it into perspective, how much one voice, one person can change a situation is huge. So, if that helps one person who's in a situation, then you've done your job.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
For sure. Thank you.
Open and dreaming.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.